Well, from America's election headquarters, Republicans jockeying for position in a crowded field of potential candidates for president. One person getting some good reviews from donors lately is Florida Senator Marco Rubio. Does he have what it takes to rise to the top of the field? That's one of the questions our next guest argues for and against a Rubio candidacy. Gerald Seib, executive Washington editor for the Wall Street Journal, writes that Rubio's case could rest on whether Republicans sufficiently disillusioned with the political establishment are ready to break tradition by trying somebody who's newer and younger and who hasn't waited his turn. Jerry Seib joins us now on his column. What do you think about that, Jerry, about what this could potentially mean for the Republican Party and Rubio's chances?
Well, you don't know until you know, but there has been a pattern in the Republican Party of picking the guy who is the establishment consensus choice and, frankly, the guy whose turn has come. Mitt Romney ran once before he was nominated in 2012. George W. Bush was the establishment choice in 2000. George H.W. Bush, Ronald Reagan, Richard Nixon, John McCain, they'd all run before they were actually handed the nomination. The question is whether the country, and in this case, the Republican Party in particular, is in enough of an anti-establishment mood that it's going to throw out that model, try something different. And Marco Rubio would certainly represent something different, not the tried and true establishment choice, but something different.
One of the things that you write about in your column is whether or not the Barack Obama formula would work for the Republican Party, because some Republicans might say, well, the Democrats did something like this with a new senator. He won as president. That didn't work out so well. We're not going to make the same choice. What do you think about that side to all of this?
Well, I mean, you can argue that one both ways, obviously. Barack Obama did win the presidency twice, so maybe that was a good formula. On the other hand, you have a lot of Republicans who say we shouldn't pick a young senator with only a few years' experience in Washington. That's what Marco Rubio is. So is that a plus or a minus? Well, that's, I think, one of the great unanswered questions about the Marco Rubio candidacy. The other one is, his authorship of an immigration plan a couple of years ago that envisioned over a long period of time a path toward legal status for illegal aliens who have been here for a while.
It's timely that you mentioned that, Jerry. I don't mean to pause you on it, but just because of the news of the last 24 hours, here we have this federal judge in Texas putting a stop to the executive action. So this is still very much playing itself out in the halls of Congress and in the White House right now. So what do you think about Marco Rubio's stance on it in the past and how that applies here?
Well, it got him into some trouble in the party over the last couple of years, and he's backed away from it. And I think everybody in the Republican Party now says, well, we are not in favor of a comprehensive approach. We don't want to try a big bill like the kind the Senate actually passed and that Marco Rubio proposed. We think now we ought to move forward on this issue on a step-by-step basis, starting with border security. That's where Marco Rubio is now. So I don't think he's out of step with his party. The question is, will there be some residual damage from what he tried to do a couple of years ago? We'll see. I think that's one question. Again, the countervailing theory is that the party's ready for somebody new, somebody different, and frankly, somebody who can speak to Hispanic voters directly, and that's one thing Marco Rubio can do.
He certainly can. I would like to switch gears here, and it does tie in, though, with whether or not foreign policy is going to be the focus for 2016. Yeah. The Wall Street Journal had a huge piece on the front page of the paper over the weekend talking about letters exchanged between Iran's Ayatollah and our president. Just to be clear, the White House doesn't weigh in. They often don't weigh in when presidents send letters around the world, and Iran is denying whether or not these letters were actually exchanged. But this is the backdrop to other headlines that we're covering, Jerry, whether it's ISIS or our way forward in the Mideast, and these nuclear negotiations with Iran are playing out as we speak. You reported in Iran. In fact, you were jailed in Iran several years back, and that is quite an experience. I know we've talked about it. Can you just talk to us a little bit about this story, what it means, and why we need to pay attention to it?
Well, I think, first of all, the Iranians are not denying that the letter was received. They were just there. I think there's a wordplay underway here.
Right. They said we didn't write them back. Right.
Yeah. Well, no, it was a few weeks or a couple of months ago, not recent. But I think it's clear that one thing that has happened is that there is an exchange of communications between the president and the supreme leader in Iran, which is unprecedented. The question is, does it really amount to much? And I think there are some people in the government who don't think it amounts to very much. And a lot of the content of the letter seems to be a recitation of Iranian grievances against the U.S. But I think your broader point is right. It is an illustration, and just one more illustration of how this issue is rising. It's going to be very prominent over the next couple of months. And if you think about it in the 2016 context, as we were just discussing, foreign policy may very well be the issue by the time we get to 2016. The economy seems to be getting a little better. World conditions seem to be getting a little worse. I think the Iran question is going to be a big part of that.
And it'll be, again, an interesting side to this and how it plays for certain potential candidates. We'll will be something we'll be talking a lot about, as always. Jerry, great to have you in the program. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jenna.